Today we're going to do an oil change and maintenance on our parabolic damper. First off, get yourself some Motul Expert Fork Oil 5 weight and a squeeze bottle. It'll also be helpful if you get a caliper. If you don't have a digital one, it's okay. You can always just write down the numbers. You're also going to want some Loctite 262 red Loctite on hand. You may want to write down your settings and then go ahead and dial the low speed to 0. Now the high speed, you want to turn it full clockwise. Don't over torque it, just turn it till it stops. Now take the flathead screw out that holds the lever on. If you don't have a vise, leave the handlebar attached to the damper for leverage. If you have one of the older flathead screws, you're going to want to replace it with one of these new ones. You'll see these new ones are more of a gray color. The old ones you can see here on the right was stainless with some writing on it. The new ones can be torqued much higher to 14 Newton meters instead of 9. We'll leave a link below. Okay, now move the lever to one side so we can get the fill plug out. Some fill plugs will be a flathead, and the newer ones are a hex head, so you'll use an Allen wrench on those ones. So it's important not to move the lever when both fill plugs are out. There's your hex head there. So, but when one is out, you can move the lever, but you'll suck air in if you do it while both are out. So now we slowly move the lever over and take the second fill plug out. Don't take the second fill plug out all the way. Back it off about halfway first. Then put a few drops of oil in the first fill plug's hole so we don't suck air into that side. So really important not to suck air into the unit. It'll just make your job easier down the road. Now grab yourself a paper plate and your squeeze bottle full of your Motul Expert Fork Oil. Now try not to introduce any air. Tip it over, push it in there, and squeeze nice and steady into the unit. All the dirty oil will come out, and then once you see clean oil, you're going to know that you've done it. That's how easy it really is. Now the trick is, when you're pulling the bottle out, keep squeezing it. Don't let go, because it'll suck the oil back into the unit and draw air from the other side. So keep squeezing it the whole time. Alright, there we go. So now we're just going to clean this thing up a little bit. Now we're going to set the preload for the reservoir. Your parabolic has an internal reservoir. So take the caliper and slide the end down into the hole, and that's going to measure the back of the piston. If it's digital, go ahead and set it to 0. If not, just write down the number. So oil thermally expands at twice the rate of aluminum. So that's why it's critical to have a reservoir. But it's also critical as to the temperature that you're doing this at, because we need to know where we're at. So right now we're at 75 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're going to take the one plug, screw it all the way down till it touches. Then we're going to back it up 2 turns. 1, 2, that's 1 turn, and that's 2 turns. Okay. Now, check the other side. Yeah, we're going to rotate that lever. Make sure the oil's full. If not, top it off. And then we're going to put the other plug in. Now here we have to screw this down slowly, because there is a valve on the reservoir, and you'll shut it if you go quickly. We're going to drop this plug in so you can see the reservoir rise as we put this second plug in. So we're turning it slowly, and if you feel the pressure gaining on you, back it up and go slower. Okay, so we got that one down. Now we can rotate it now because this plugs in, and we're going to take the second one down those 2 turns so they're both touching. They're not tight yet, but they're touching. And you can see that gap there underneath that plug that wasn't there before. Yeah, that was flush. Okay, now we're going to measure how much the piston went up. So we're going to slide that caliper back down, press it down, and let's take a look here. Alright, it looks like 0.145 in inches. So here's a chart. So you can see at the current temperature of 75 degrees, we should be between 0.0875 and 0.1375. But we're actually a little further up than that, so we're going to have to actually take a little bit of oil out. You also have metric equivalent over here on the right, and you can see here at the top where it gives you a formula. We'll leave a link for this chart down below. So we are at 0.145 and we need to be below 0.1375. So we're going to take the one plug out. Okay. And now we're going to, once we get that out, we're going to rotate that. Let's fill it up first. Then we'll move the lever over. There we go. And now we're going to back out this one. So instead of 2 turns, let's go 1.5 turns and repeat the same process. Right now we go back, and if the oil's low, top it off. But of course, we're trying to get oil out, so it's not low. And screw this one back in. So we're just repeating the process we did earlier. Again, go slow. If pressure builds, back it up and go down slower again. There is a valve on the reservoir. Okay, so we got that down. We're going to rotate the lever and bring that other side down that 1.5 turns we're up. And then we can go ahead and remeasure and see if we're within that range. Now, if we needed to add oil instead of take it out, we would have just backed that screw up 2.5 turns and tried it again. All right, so you can see there we're at 0.1225, which is below the 0.1375 that we needed, but yet above the 0.0875 of the low. Now tighten the 2 fill plug screws nice and snug there. There we go. Notice the temperature did go up to 76, but we're still within the range. Now we can put the lever's flathead screw back in, get some Loctite 262, and put it on the end of your thread there. Just a little bit'll do ya. There we go. Now we're going to put it in, and we're going to torque it to 14 Newton meters. But that's only if you have the gray screw with no writing on it. Remember, the stainless screws are not as strong. Okay, so now we're going to torque it to 14 Newton meters or 125 inch-pounds. Now we can go ahead and reset the low speed and high speed to their original settings. So hopefully you wrote those down or remember what they were. There we go. And there you go. We are done changing the oil in our parabolic damper. Now we're going to grease the linkage. Use a high pressure grease, not a wheel bearing grease. We like Frontier Silver 70, but any high pressure grease will do. So we're going to take the ball pin out. Now there's 2 types of attachment. It could be a nut or a clip. We're going to show you first with the nut. So here we are. We're going to put it back in the vise here. Take the nut off, unscrew it so we can get the threaded bottom socket and the ball pin out. Now we're going to clean those all up, then apply some grease, and then reassemble. Now, your damper came with a little tool if you have the nut type of socket to help you adjust the ball pin here. So we grease it up. It's a little high pressure grease again, not wheel bearing grease. Put it in there. Get your socket. There's your third socket. So the little tabs go up, and that's what that tool is going to fit into and help you adjust this thing. Okay, so ring it around. Go ahead and snug it up on the ball, and then we're going to put the nut on. So here's where the tool comes in. It has 2 little ears, and the ears go into those little tabs there. So you want to snug it up and then go about 1/8 of a turn off of touching, and then try and hold it in place there as you tighten the nut. This may take a few tries to get it right. You don't want it to wiggle. It can be a little snug on one end or the other. It's fine. You're never going to feel that at the end of a giant handlebar like you will with your fingers. So a little snug is okay. But if it can move and not wiggle, then you are good. Now, if you have a clip style, it'll look more like this right here to the right. So you'll have your ball pin, and then there's a bottom socket, and then a clip. The clip is bent. It is purposely bent, though, to act as a spring and push down on that bottom socket. So take the clip out with a small screwdriver, and then the ball pin and the bottom socket should pop right out, and then go ahead and get those all cleaned up nice, and then we're going to go ahead and re-grease it with, again, a high pressure grease, not a wheel bearing grease. Doesn't take a whole bunch. Then go ahead and put it back in your socket and put your bottom socket back on. There we go. Push it down with the screwdriver, and you'll see the little clip ring. You might not see it on the video, but you'll see it when you're doing it. And then go ahead and use your small screwdriver to go ahead and put that clip back in place. Once the clip is in, go ahead and work the grease around, moving the pin. Make sure it moves freely, but no wiggle. Notice that there's rifling in the pivot dog and also on the bushing of the pivot dog. The purpose of that is just to hold grease on the tight, precise fits. Now, if you're tight on time, you can grease it right on the bike too for those in-between times. Just clean it out with a Q-tip. Then go ahead and get yourself the same high pressure grease. Put it on a little pin and shove it in the hole there. Work it around. Now, when we take the ball pin from the damper and drive it in there, it's going to take that grease and shoot it up and down the rifling, both in the pin and in the bushing. So both will end up getting lubricated. So this is a super quick and easy way to do it for those in-between times that you don't want to necessarily take your pivot dog out and take it apart and clean it. So yeah, push that pin all the way down in there. You're going to notice it compresses air because it's such a tight tolerance fit. You're going to have to hold it down with your thumb as you tighten your clamp up here. So yeah, we're going to get that in place and snug up this back clamp while we're holding that gap. You're going to want to go to the installation video if you don't remember how to do it and follow the instructions for putting the damper on correctly. Okay, we're all done with our oil change and lubrication. Hope this video is helpful. You can always go online for more information.